My name is Kevin Jones. I'm the Adjutant General of the Veterans of Foreign Wars, and tonight I want to welcome you to our legislative reception. First, before I introduce our Commander-in-Chief, I want to thank everybody for what you've done with your activism and your advocacy today, yesterday, and talking about the priority goals of the Veterans of Foreign Wars. It's what we do, and we certainly appreciate you making our goals known to those within your each state, Senate, and House. At this time, it gives me a great deal of pleasure to introduce our Commander-in-Chief of the Veterans of Foreign Wars from the great state of New Mexico, B.J. Lawrence.
Thank you. Thank you, please. Before I get into a couple of introductions, I first want to address the Veterans of Foreign Wars members and auxiliary in the House. Whoop. You hit the hill hard the last couple of days. You made sure our voice was heard loud and clear. You delivered the priority goals. But first and foremost, as you always do, you made it happen. And as you know, that's what it's going to take. We can't let up. We sure can't slow down now. We got the message out, but there's a part two. There's a part to be continued, and that's follow up and make sure that our priority goals, make sure you demand that they be met, make sure that we continue to advocate that our nation's veterans receive the best possible health care, that our veterans, our military, and their families continue to receive the care, the benefits, and the entitlements they deserve. And it starts with you. So I urge you all, please, don't stop here. Don't stop here in our nation's capital. Return home. Make sure you follow up on your messages. Make sure you keep in touch with your constituents. And make sure that you always demand that the VFW will always be heard and our voice will be strong. I want to thank you all for what you do each and every day. I also, if I don't have the opportunity later, I want to actually wish you all safe journeys home. We have some weather fronts out there, so please travel safe. Please continue to do what you do. As you know, no one does more for veterans than the Veterans of Foreign Wars. I want to recognize with us tonight, we also have the Veterans of Foreign Wars Auxiliary and their national officers led by National President Sandy Kriebel. And as you know from my testimony today, we also have with us Chairman Takano. I want to thank you for coming out this evening. I want to thank you for all your support and all your bipartisan work when it comes to taking care of our veterans, our military, and their families, sir. Thank you. At this time, it gives me a great pleasure to introduce our special speaker tonight for his remarks, the Secretary of the VA, Mr. Wilkie. And he's on crutches, so I'll go ahead and explain now. That's what happens when you don't listen to the National Commander of the VFW. But we still love each other and we're still friends.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Well, what you're seeing in front of you is a monument to decades of athletic mediocrity. I went to Wake Forest University, where our football dorm is named after Arnold Palmer, which ought to tell you something about us. But no, it's a great honor for me to be here. I want to also recognize the two wonderful chairmen of the two great bipartisan committees in the United States Congress, the House Committee on Veterans Affairs and the Senate Committee on Veterans Affairs. It is my honor to be part of their world. It is my honor to be part of your world. I'm going to take a point of personal privilege and talk about what was on my mind when I was sitting as General Mattis's Undersecretary of Defense when the call came to come serve with you. I have had very modest military service, still do, compared to my ancestors. But what was on my mind was a day in 1970 when we found out that my father had been gravely wounded in Vietnam, actually in the invasion of Cambodia. He was a big man for his day, about 6'2", 240. And when he came back to us after a year at Tripler, he weighed half of what he did when he went there. And I can remember those khaki uniforms that the Army had in those days, looking like a drape on his body when he came back to us. And that was on my mind. But the other part of that was the honor of being part of a family dedicated to the service of this country. And that is why it is an honor to be here. I do want to tell you for a few short minutes that because of the gentleman you see sitting here and your team, we are on the cusp of the greatest transformative period in the history of your department, more so than even when General Bradley sat in the desk that I am now honored to occupy. We are on the verge of creating a modern 21st century healthcare administration, a VA for all veterans, for all who have served. And in my brief time, I have been honored to travel up and down this country to the great VFW post in Eagle River, Alaska, which 2 weeks after I was there was hit by a devastating earthquake, and talk to those wonderful veterans who have borne the battle. As I said, we're on the cusp of a new day at VA. That's not business as usual. That means getting out to the rank and file in places like Eagle River and talking to those who are on the front lines of making sure our veterans worked on behalf of this department. And so that is my great honor. What I do want to tell you is that because of the chairman you see here, our VA is better than it was just a short time ago. The Partnership for Public Service now says we are one of the top places in the federal government to work. The Annals of Internal Medicine say that medical care at our VA hospitals is good or better than any in the country, and now our wait times are better than they are in the private sector. We will continue to move forward. I will continue in my honored place amongst you to get out beyond the District of Columbia, get out beyond what is expected of people inside this beltway, and talk to all of those who have borne the battle. I will leave you with a notion that I usually end my speeches with, and is what does it mean to be part of the Department of Veterans Affairs? What does it mean to be a veteran? And I go back to General Eisenhower. Some of you have heard me tell this story before. About 2 miles from here is the Washington Navy Yard. And when President Eisenhower was inaugurated, he was told that he inherited a presidential yacht named Williamsburg. Well, being a man of the heartland, General Eisenhower thought that that was an offensive thing, particularly for a democracy engaged in war in Korea, that a president would have a yacht. So he ordered it scrapped. But there was one person whose orders he could not countermand, and that was Mamie's. And Mamie said, "No, General, when you take it out, only take out soldiers." So about 5 or 6 months after he was inaugurated, 40 Korean War veterans moved on to the yacht Williamsburg. Some were horribly disfigured, others were missing limbs, and you know the Washington Kabuki dance that followed. The Secret Service deployed to separate the commander-in-chief from his troops. And as only a five-star general of the Army could do, Eisenhower yelled, "Halt, get behind me, I know these men." And he walked among them, and he asked those who could to stand at attention, and those who could did. And he said, "You have one charge for me, and this is a charge that is common to everybody in the VFW. You never put your uniform away. You live to remind your fellow citizens every day why they sleep soundly at night. You are the testament to the courage that has kept this country free for over 240 years. So that is why the VA must meet your expectations. That is why we are doing things in ways that we've never done them before, and why, at the end of the day, the VFW will be proud of the VA that this organization created. So on behalf of the 370,000 members of the Department of Veterans Affairs, I want to say thank you. I am honored to be here with patriots, not only in your organization, but Chairman Isakson and Chairman Takano, and a person who reports on what Chairman Isakson, Chairman Takano, and yours truly does on a daily basis, Leo Shane. You couldn't have picked any people more worthy of your recognition, so I thank you, and God bless you.
Yeah, we do that dance. DJ, play some music. You said dance. Let's give a warm VFW welcome for our chairman of the House Veterans Affairs Committee from the great state of California, Mark Takano.
Well, as I was walking in the room, I met a couple of your members from the state of Louisiana, and I have to say that I admire your Louisiana members because they put the VFW and country above Mardi Gras. So my hat's off to you. I know how much that means, and I know laissez le bon temps rouler and all that, but thank you for making your own way here on your own dime, all of you, to come here and reach out to your members of Congress. And I want to let you know how important that is, because the VFW, along with the other VSOs, you have a very, very special role to play. And that's to be independent of party, to be above party, because you put country above Mardi Gras, you put country above, you gave to this country. And members of Congress know that. They know that your voice is not corrupted by money, that campaign contributions aren't the heart of your message. The heart of your message is do right by America's veterans. So let me just say that what I bring to the table is not my own military service, but a deep respect for history, my own family's history. I had a brother that was in the Army and is now just retired law enforcement, the first Asian American to be on the Raleigh-Durham police force. I have the memories of one of my uncles who came back from Vietnam, I also have memories of being a 10-year-old boy coming home from school in September of 1970 and learning that he had committed suicide. So I have, a connection to that Vietnam War era veteran and the issue of suicide. And I want to thank the VA and the Department of Defense for sending folks to our roundtable today, and we were laying the groundwork and building the trust necessary to get beyond hyperbolic headlines and to get down to the deeper core issues of why that suicide rate of 20 per day is so persistent. And let me just hold that thought for a moment, because what it's going to take is a kind of spirit that the proudest part of my family's history is three great uncles that served in the 442nd Infantry Battalion. Who knows the battle cry of the 442nd? Is go for broke. Go for broke. And I tell young people today, I tell young dreamers in this country who who wonder why they need to be still good students and still aspire to do well in our country, even though their citizenship status is somewhat in doubt. I tell all Americans who are troubled by the divisiveness in this country about the story of my great uncle Mon, who died in Italy, fighting for this country, even as his relatives were in internment camps. And I think of that motto, go for broke. It's a gambling term, which means you bet it all, leave nothing off the table. And he did bet it all. He bet with his life that this country was a better bet than Nazi Germany, Imperial Japan, or fascist Italy. And what became of this world after that war that we're going to observe the 75th anniversary of D-Day come this June. And so what it's going to take to make an impact and a dent on that suicide rate is that go for broke spirit, that you bet it all, that we're going to go all in, and that go for broke spirit is what I want to bring to this committee as the chairman, that every day that we're going for broke. And I tell young people, go for broke for your country. You're the new generation, you have a way to make a same level and profoundness of contribution as my great uncle, who was part of this nation's greatest generation. You have that opportunity, and I just close on what I thought were profound words by Senator McCain. Despite what you see happening, don't stop believing in America. I still believe in America, and I'm going to go for broke. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Tucano. Thank you very much. It is now my distinct pleasure to introduce the recipient of this year's VFW News Media Award, the Deputy Editor of Military Times, Mr. Leo Shane. Leo is a well-known and respected journalist here in Washington. For 15 years, to include his time with Stars and Stripes, he has covered every storyline possible regarding military and veterans' pay and benefits, education and training, transition and policy changes, directives, and controversies. His expertise is having the journalistic ability to translate what's complicated into what's understandable. Thousands of articles that have enabled 9 Congresses, 3 administrations, and 2.2 million servicemen and women, 20 million veterans, and all their families to better understand the unique challenges that those involved in our nation's wars encounter both in uniform and after they return home. Comrades and guests, it is my honor to now present the 2019 VFW News Media Award to a friend of the VFW and to veterans, service members, and their families everywhere. Let's give a great big round of applause for Mr. Leo Shane.
News Media Award and citation awarded to Leo Shane III, Military Times, in special recognition and sincere appreciation of 15 years of outstanding reporting on behalf of America's 2.2 million servicemen and women, 20 million veterans, and all their families. As deputy editor of Military Times and its chief correspondent regarding military and veteran quality of life issues and policies, he has enabled Congress, the administration, and all of America to better understand the unique challenges that those involved in our nation's wars encounter both in uniform and afterwards. By maintaining the highest journalistic standards, he keeps with the highest ideals and principles of the Veterans of Foreign Wars of the United States, in witness whereof we have hereunto set our hand and the official seal of the Veterans of Foreign Wars of the United States this 6th day of March, 2019, approved by the National Council of Administration, signed by B.J. Lawrence, Commander-in-Chief, Kevin C. Jones, Adjutant General.
Look, I'm not going to talk for too long because I'm used to standing in the back. I'm not used to being up front here. I'm usually trying to intercept these guys as they're sneaking out on the side. So, look, 15 years, it's been a blessing for me to be able to cover this beat and to be able to cover these stories. I remember coming into town working for Stars and Stripes. One of my first calls was to Joe Davis at the VFW, and I forget what the topic was, but he asked, well, do you know anything about VA? Have you covered VA before? And I said no, I got no idea, and I could hear the silence on the other side with him saying, got another one of these, got another one I got to walk through. But he patiently walked through things with me and introduced me to more people at VFW, introduced me to more people at the VSOs, and helped me to learn what I needed to learn, helped me to really understand these issues. I've never taken for granted how much the veterans community has welcomed me, has allowed me to tell your stories. All of my work is just a reflection of how much the veterans community wants to share, wants to make the country better, and wants to talk about their issues, wants to help people understand. So for this honor, I'm humbled, I'm flattered, I'm a little flustered because I can't quite process that all you folks read my stuff and follow me on Twitter even after all the Philadelphia stuff on there. So. I would just ask you all, I know we're at a time with a lot of tensions about the media, a lot of concerns about how well folks can cover or understand the things they cover. Look, you need to keep sharing your stories. You need to be patient. You need to understand. If you read something that you don't like, you need to approach that person, but not from a point of hostility, but from a point of sharing. That's how I've learned what I've needed to learn, and that's how. And you need to hold reporters accountable too. You need to talk to them about what they are making mistakes about. There's tons of VSO folks in this room and tons of VFW folks who have no problem telling me, yeah, you blew that one. Let's get it right next time. But I need you guys to keep sharing, keep telling those stories. Just make sure to share them with me first, and then everyone else. So thank you so much. So.
It is now my distinct honor and a privilege to introduce a Veterans Champion in Congress, the Chairman of the Senate Committee on Veterans Affairs, and the recipient of the 2019 VFW Congressional Award, Senator Johnny Isakson of Georgia. He was born in Atlanta, is a University of Georgia graduate, and is a veteran of the Georgia Air National Guard. He is a realtor by trade who would serve 7 terms in the Georgia State Legislature, 3 terms representing Georgia's 6th Congressional District in the U.S. House of Representatives, and now in his 3rd term as Georgia's senior U.S. Senator. The VFW Congressional Award has been presented annually since 1964 to one sitting member of Congress for his or her outstanding service to our nation's veteran and military communities. It is nonpartisan in nature, and by custom, the granting of the award alternates between the 2 houses of Congress. Senator Isakson earned this year's award for his unwavering support of veterans service members, and their families. During his time as VA committee chairman, he has been instrumental in securing Senate passage of many VFW legislative goals to include expedited accountability of VA employees, modernizing the VA appeals process, improving the GI Bill, enabling more veterans to receive the quality health care they earned and deserve, expanding the caregiver program to veterans, and he continues to fight for benefits for all Blue Water Navy veterans. It was indeed an honor to represent our great organization before his committee this morning, and now it is again my honor to present the 2019 VFW Congressional Award to a Veterans Champion in Congress, Senate VA Committee Chairman Johnny Isakson.
2019 Congressional Award, and this citation awarded to the Honorable Johnny Isakson, United States Senate, Georgia. In grateful appreciation to a champion in Congress for 2 decades of unwavering support to his fellow veterans, service members, their families, and survivors. As chairman of the Senate Veterans Affairs Committee, he secured passage of numerous VFW legislative priority goals to include expedited VA employee accountability, modernizing the VA appeals process, forever GI Bill passage, improving veterans' health care through the VA Mission Act, and expanding caregiver programs to veterans of all eras. He is devoted to working with members of all parties and ideologies to keep veterans' issues bipartisan, which is true to the ideals, traditions, and values of the Veterans of Foreign Wars of the United States. In witness whereof we have hereunto set our hands and the official seal of the Veterans of Foreign Wars of the United States, the 6th day of March 2019, approved by the National Council of Administration, signed by B.J. Lawrence, Commander-in-Chief, Kevin Jones, Adjutant General.
You know, when you're the last one to speak at something like this, the subject is it's not what you're going to say. Everybody's already said what needs to be said, just everybody hasn't said it yet. So I'm going to be brief, but I'm going to be to the point, and I hope you will pay close attention because I've been practicing what I was going to say tonight. Not because I don't always do that, I do. I make some mental checklists of the points I want to be sure and make. But tonight's important to me. It's really more important to you, but it's really important to me. And your Commander-in-Chief today made one of the best presentations we've had in my 6 years on the committee. In fact, he gave me my best line to close on tonight, but I'm going to open with it. Because he chastised all of us in the House and Senate, and the VA itself, Mr. Secretary, for being sure that we include them in the implementation of new standards for VA health care and choice. Make sure the VFW was a part of it from the beginning. Make sure we were partners. And he'll tell you, I told him when I got up to speak, I said, I'm expecting the same thing out of the VFW members. We want you to be our partner. We don't want you to call up and tell us you don't like the way the hospital in Atlanta is operating for vets. We want you to tell us what's wrong with it. We'll go down there with us, let's look at it, let's find out what we need to do to fix it. Sometimes you're wrong. Sometimes we're wrong. But if we don't sit down at the same table, at the same place, and analyze it on a timely basis, we'll never know for sure. But I'll tell you one thing over there at the VA. When they see us coming, they'll know something's up. You think about your days. I remember my field training days in Puerto Rico. I was a loadmaster on 124. That means I was a baggage man. And y'all remember 124s, they're all in the boneyard in Arizona now, but they were pretty good airplanes. They could carry a Huey helicopter fully loaded, which is pretty good. But I can remember what we used to do on those missions, and I can remember all the things that we used to learn about in terms of our military that we appreciate so much today. But our military today is unbelievable. It's not unbelievable because of the VA members. It's not VA members of Congress. It's not because of the committees in Congress. It's because of you. You've made it what it is. But we're at a crossroads, Mr. Secretary. If we don't get this thing working now, it's never going to work. I hate to say that. I want you to write that down too, and you can hold it against me. We've gone too long. When I got up here and got on the committee and started working, we had problems on suicide. We had problems on choice. We didn't have choice. We had problems on getting extra care for veterans. We had problems on being treated right. We had problems on concurrent receipt. We had problems on everything. Well, you know, we fixed about every one of those problems statutorily. We hadn't fixed them up here. We got to fix them attitudinally. I want to tell you what I mean. I went for broke when I got here tonight. I know that's your slogan. And there's a lovely lady, Miss Chevalier, is that correct? How do I pronounce the last name? Chevalier? Would you come up here, please? Pardon me one second. I want to tell you something. I pointed with my finger. You should never point with your finger to anybody. This is a wonderful lady, and there are 3 other ladies equally as wonderful, and I want to tell you why. When I walked in the door, I felt so good about being with the VFW. I said, I want to go kiss the first one of the auxiliary I can find.
So you weren't being picky?
No, I picked over 1 or 2. And so I saw her over in the corner. I came over and said, you are so beautiful. Can I give you a kiss? And she gave me a kiss. And I hadn't felt this good in years. And 3 other ladies, husbands gave them permission to come up and give me a kiss. Well, what am I going to do, turn it down? So I don't have the best opening lines, but I tell you, there's still hope for me at 74, and I'm trying.
Thank you.
Isn't she great? Give her a hand. So my message to you tonight is this. I've got 2 more years on this committee, and 2 more years as chairman unless they throw me off. But I'm going to do everything I can these last 2 years to see to it we make those we've passed the last 4 years work. We don't need any new bills. You've got to get some more people hired. We don't need more bills. We don't need any more experts. We need people to take action. I want to tell you about 2 action people in my life and their military service to make my point. The first one is Jackson Elliot Cox III from Waynesboro, Georgia, the bird dog capital of America. Jack was my best friend at the University of Georgia, was on the football team, walked on, was a great guy. We called him the Golden Lummox. He was just a big old, almost waddled when he walked. He was so big. But Jack was a wonderful person. He was the head of the prayer breakfast at the University of Georgia. He was just, everybody loved him. He's one of a kind. We were at the SAE House in Athens on May of 1965 when Jack came back to the fraternity house where he lived, all of us. The other 2 that were best friends with him were Pierre Howard, who was our lieutenant governor later on, myself, and Alex Crumley, who became a Superior Court judge. So the 4 of us would always meet at the house that afternoon and probably have a beer, and then think of some reason not to study and then go home. But anyway, they came that night, and Jack came in, he had the biggest smile on his face I ever saw. He said, Jack, what happened? He said, I joined the Marines today. And we said, you did what? Are you crazy? You're going to get your ass killed. Which was a typical 20-year-old remark at an SAE fraternity house with 1 beer in them on a Saturday afternoon in the spring. And then we realized Jack was serious. We sat down with him and said, we'll do anything we can to help you. Because we were all dealing with the same decision. I went in the National Guard later on. Alex Crumley, a judge, went in the Guard sometime later. And our lieutenant governor went in the Navy. So everybody went somewhere. But Jack wanted to go in the Marines. And I said, Jack, why don't you go down and without at least talking to us? He said, well, I watched it on television every night for 4 years now, and I just want to go out. I want to kill some Vietnamese and kill some communist Chinese and get the communists out of Southeast Asia and help those people that need help. And I'm here today because a lot of people did that for me, so I'm going to do it for them. So Jack went to Parris Island, went to OCS, became an officer, a lieutenant in the United States Marine Corps. And by then, as fast as you were getting out, you were on your way to Vietnam. And a lot of people in this room know what I'm talking about. And he landed in Vietnam and he fought with valor. But 2 months before he was supposed to come home on his 2nd tour, he was killed by a sniper. I got the first call. Emily and Jackson Elliot, his father, were just like my parents. And I was a little bit like their son. And when they called me and I started crying, they started crying. I didn't think either one of the three of us were going to make it. But they told me, he said, you've got to call Alex and you got to talk Pierre. We'll call other family members. Jack's going to line stayed in our dining room, which is kind of the tradition in South Georgia back then. So we said, we'll stay with you. And we'll stay up at night with Jack, because that was important. Would you give me a water? So 2 nights later, the Marines came. They escorted the casket to the house on 759 Liberty Street. The soon-to-be Lieutenant Governor of Georgia, Pierre Howard, showed up. The soon-to-be Navy person, later a judge, Alex Crumley, showed up. The soon-to-be National Guardsman in training, / later a senator of the United States Senate, showed up. And Jack's parents showed up. And we cried and held hands. And everybody from that little town of 7,281 people walked through that house over the next 3 days. And we stayed there so they could all come, because they all loved Jack. He was wonderful. When those 21 guns fired on the 3 volleys of 7 each for 21 guns on the hillside in Waynesboro, I cried for the last time that day. And I swore, and I said to myself in a prayer, that whatever God lets me do, whatever opportunity God gives me, I want to do everything good that I do in life in honor of Jack Cox. Because Jack Cox, for the right reasons, went to Vietnam and died for me and for you. I want to tell you about a second person. I want to tell you about Noah Harris. Noah Harris was a male cheerleader for the University of Georgia in 2001. And in 2001, on 9/11, in September, you know what happened? Al-Qaeda hit us. They took down the Twin Towers. 3,000 people died. The same amount of people that died at Pearl Harbor died that day, interestingly enough, in the Twin Towers. And Noah was a cheerleader and was to cheer that coming weekend, but they canceled all those games, if you remember, postponed them to the end of the year because of the tragedy of that accident. And as a member of the Veterans Committee and as one caring deeply about our soldiers, I got involved in some of the volunteer work we did for those people at that particular point in time. And within a week or so, President Bush and the others had figured out what we were going to do. The president had a press conference, and the president said, we're going to go after them when we get them. So, and you all remember that. But I thought about Jack Cox before that. I said, well, there Jack, 3 or 4 years ago, was laying in that casket in his mom and dad's dining room. He'd already given his ultimate gift for me. He couldn't give any more. We were getting ready to go after Al-Qaeda and all those terrorists, and more Americans will give that ultimate gift. And so I went out and spent time thanking them for volunteering and going. And I went one day to the University of Georgia on a Saturday afternoon when the cheerleaders were coming in from a Friday afternoon when they were coming in for practice for the next day's game. And I met Noah Harris by accident. And I said, Noah, how long have you been a cheerleader? He said, I've been one every year I've been here. But I'm going to be a cheerleader this year and next year. But I'm thinking about changing because after what happened last Tuesday, I think I'm going to join the Army, or I think I'm going to go in OCS, and I may not be able to still be a cheerleader. Because I can't stand knowing what happened and not being a part of correcting it. That's what he told me. Just like Jack told me, he said, I want to do something for my country. So Noah Harris went to OCS and became a captain in the United States Army. And went to Iraq after we voted. I voted, and some of the other members who were in Congress, you voted. I think you were here. No, you weren't here, but you were too young. We voted to send our sons and daughters, which I take very seriously, by the way. It's the toughest vote we have to make ever, to send your sons and daughters, or our sons and daughters, into harm's way, but we did. And I kept up with Noah, and Noah was my email partner. And my press secretary is here, she remembers this. I made every speech I made on the floor about President Bush's recommendations and Rumsfeld's and the others on what to do about Al-Qaeda, about Iraq, and when we should go in, how many troops we need. I would email to Noah and say, Noah, tell me what to do. And Noah would tell me his opinion. I mean, I had on-the-ground, eyes in the sky, best 24/7 intel you ever had. He was taking the bullets and was leading everybody. He was, by the way, he was the baby bunny, the Aflac bunny. You know, he carried those over. He gave those to Iraqi kids when he was walking around the street in Gazaria and the other towns. But anyway, Noah wrote me a note every week. And in his emails, he'd always sign off, not very truly yours or your friend Noah, but he'd say, IDWIC. IDWIC. Don't yell it out. Think what that might stand for. And then I'm going to tell you what it stands for. It was Noah's way of sending to me why Noah was serving overseas and to his parents and everybody else that loved him. See, IDWIC stands for I do what I can. And every email he sent me, every letter he wrote to me, every call he made, the last thing he said was, Johnny, I'm going to do what I can. I can't do a lot, but I can do something. I can't do everything, but I can be somebody. And I'm going to do everything I can to see to it that what they did does not destroy our country anymore. Noah Harris was killed about 6 months before he was supposed to go home. And I went to his funeral and did a eulogy in a church in Dahlonega, Georgia. And it was one of the saddest days I had. Not as sad as the one with Jack Cox, but very sad. But it was also a happy day. And you might say, why are you saying it's a happy day? Because of this, think about this. I want you to think about this when I tell you. We live in the greatest country on the face of this earth. Nobody's trying to break out of the United States of America. They're all trying to break in. We're in the best place in the world because the best men and the best women fought for our country, risked their lives, and died for us. And I'm going to tell you why I'm using this as an example. I know the Blue Water Navy is expensive. I know the Secretary's got a lot on his shoulders. He's going to probably come over to me, see me in a couple of months and say, all right, you sort of help ram this down our throat and now help us find the money. And he's going to have a problem. I mean, we know it's going to be, we don't think it's going to be expensive as the CBS is saying, but we know it might be expensive. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to try the best I can to find every dime that I can. You know what? I'll bet you, and this is not a trick, I'll bet you your Commander-in-Chief's going to help me find every dollar he can find. I heard him today quite clear. He said, don't give me any excuses. Don't tell me we don't have enough money, and I'm not. Bob, I'm telling you, we're going to help us find it. We need to be a team on this stuff. If the VA is under stress for Blue Water Navy, the guys deserve the benefit, so they get that. That's done, gone. We just got to make sure we pay for it. And when we get into this burn pit stuff and some of the other things that's going to come up because of the warfare in the Middle East and because of the things that happen there, and we've been through that already in some of the domestic bases, we know we've got some big problems. But there's no problem too big to solve if the sacrifice to solve the problem is great. These guys we're working for sacrificed their lives for us to have this problem. I submit to you it's the least we can do to fix it and give them their benefit. I talk too much, but kisses inspire me. And I'm going to go get one more right now. God bless all of you.
All right, VFW and Auxiliary, before our Adjutant General closes this program, I want you to do me a favor and look around the room. We have numerous representatives with us tonight. We have staff and members of the VA with us tonight. We have chairmen of committees with us tonight, and we have all of you VFW and Auxiliary members with us tonight. What do we all have in common? Every person in this room cares about our nation's veterans. That's why we're here. So to our award recipients and all our special guests tonight, let's show them appreciation and how much we care about them coming out and choosing to spend the evening with us. And let's raise the roof off this room in appreciation for our guests.
Comrades and sisters, I would be remiss if I didn't mention the outstanding job done by our Washington office and Kansas City office for putting on undoubtedly one of the best legislative conferences that I have been to in the 22 years that I've been with the national organization. God bless each and every one of you. Safe travels home. Keep doing the work of the Veterans of Foreign Wars. God bless each and every one of you. Thank you.